When it comes to the boxing division, there is no denying that most people have their eyes on the heavyweight division. Whether it be the huge KOs or the sheer size of the fighters, the heavyweight division is just pure box office sport. It has always been that way throughout the history of the sport, with many of the biggest names coming from the heavyweight class. In terms of ranking these heavyweights, there are always debates going on as to who is the best heavyweight of all time and which fighter from a certain era would beat a fighter from a different era if they were to face off. However, let's take a look at a list that has ranked heavyweights by power rather than simply who is the best. Premier Boxing Champions, PBC, have compiled a list of who they believe to be the 10 hardest punchers in the history of heavyweight boxing, with some omissions sure to cause some uproar among boxing fans. Sonny Liston. Coming in to kick off this list is a fighter who certainly deserves more respect and recognition for his achievements inside the ring. With a career spanning 17 years, Liston fought in a time with huge superstar names, most notably Muhammad Ali, with history perhaps not remembering just how feared Liston truly was. He was a terrifying fighter with incredible punching power, with many in the division too scared to fight him during his prime. Unfortunately, his career ended with losses to Ali, which is why he may not be as highly regarded today, but make no mistake that this man was a machine. Lennox Lewis. Next up is one of Britain's most notable boxers of all time, with Lennox Lewis having a huge impact on the sport of boxing during his era of dominance in the 1990s. He stands at 6 feet 5 inches tall and was a master technician inside the ring, with his straight right hand being absolutely deadly to anyone standing in his way. Perhaps Lewis' most famous example of power came in his KO of Razor Ruddock in 1992, with that iconic right hand knocking Ruddock down in the first round. Joe Louis. We now go back to an earlier era of modern boxing, with the Brown Bomber himself, Joe Louis. In a recent list of the most powerful punchers of all time across all divisions, Louis came out on top. The dominance of his era of boxing is unmatched, and his 52 career KOs highlight just how powerful this guy was. If only we could see Louis in his prime today to see how he would fare against some of the more modern heavyweight greats. Vladimir Klitschko. This list would not be complete without the inclusion of this man. The Ukrainian giant that is Vladimir Klitschko boasts an impressive record of 53 career KOs, with his right hand being widely accepted as one of the best of the modern era of boxing. His prime years of the mid to late 2000s saw pretty much everyone in his path left in the dust, with Lennox Lewis himself quoted as saying that Klitschko possessed more power than him. Joe Frazier. A true icon of the sport, Joe Frazier may be remembered for losing his first fight against Muhammad Ali, but die-hard boxing fans will remember the emphatic right hand that floored Ali towards the end of their bout. The power behind the fists of Frazier was even more impressive when you consider his height being just under 6 feet tall, making him undersized as a heavyweight. Add to that his agility, speed, and nimble movement, and you have one of the best all-round fighters the sport has ever seen. Mike Tyson. Was there ever any doubt that Mike Tyson would not make this list? Iron Mike is perhaps the biggest superstar the sport has ever seen, with his fights during his prime becoming literal global events where the whole world stopped to watch what he was going to do. Aside from the character and charisma of Tyson, his punching power was nothing short of petrifying for his opponents, with his performances gaining attention from casual fans that usually had no interest in the sport. 22 first-round KOs to his name just about sums up the power this man possessed. Rocky Marciano. A man with a perfect record, Rocky Marciano, comes in at 4th spot in this list of heavyweight powerhouses. Marciano was a one-punch master and threw every shot like it was his last. What makes his achievements even more impressive is that he was incredibly undersized for a heavyweight, so much so that if he was fighting today he would be considered a small cruiserweight. Rocky is another fighter who many would love to see battle it out against the greats of today to see just how he would fare. George Foreman. This man had 2 stints in the boxing world and was a feared punching machine in both of those. Whether it was the young George Foreman that became Olympic champion, or the Foreman that returned after a decade away from the sport to reignite his legacy, both were as deadly as each other. Boasting 68 KOs from his 76 victories, Foreman had unnatural amounts of power in his gloves, with the bout with Muhammad Ali still mentioned to this day as the only one that got away for Foreman. Ernie Shavers. Another legend of the ring that loved a KO victory was Ernie Shavers. In fact, 51 of his 68 KO victories came within the first 3 rounds, highlighting just how powerful this man was. Icons from his era, including Ali, are all quoted to say that Shavers has a harder and more powerful punch than anyone else around. He is maybe not remembered as being one of the most skilled fighters of his time or someone with extraordinary tactical nous, but in terms of power, there are not many better. Deontay Wilder. Coming in to top this list of icons and legends is a modern-day fighter with the most insane one-punch power we may ever see in the sport. The bronze bomber Deontay Wilder possesses a godly amount of power in his fists, and is seen as one of the most feared men to ever set foot in the ring. Despite his recent losses at the tail end of his career, Wilder's prime is up there with the very best. Quite unbelievably, Wilder has 40 KO victories to his name, with 30 of those coming in the first 3 rounds. Add to the power the speed and agility in this man's feet, and you have a pure phenom with everything you would want in a heavyweight machine. The fact he is the only active fighter making this list is a further testament to the power and abilities of the Bronze Bomber.